Okay, hello everyone. First, my apologies for having to cancel class on such short notice. I really didn't want to, but I got really sick. I picked up a cold during my travels in America. I did 6 flights in 3 days, and I think my immune system just kind of collapsed. And also, my apologies for getting this online kind of late. I have some issues of recording this kind of things on a Mac. I finally figured it out. Okay, so this week was language and medium of instruction, and I start with a painting of the Tower of Babel. So the Tower of Babel is an interesting allegory for all of this. It is a biblical story; it comes out of the Bible, and the story begins. Everyone speaks the same language, and then people get very conceited, and they think that they can build a tower as high as God, and God punishes them by first destroying the tower and then by making everybody speak different languages to which they then scatter off to different parts of the world. So it's an interesting way of looking at the issue of language diversity in the world. Is it a blessing, or as the Bible would suggest, is it a curse? I think some people would say it's a blessing. People like Wade Davis argue that each language is a different universe of a way of understanding the world. People like me would sometimes just find it annoying that there's so many languages out there that I have to learn to travel and understand different cultures. So for today's class, what I do is I'm breaking it down into 4 sections. First, it's just kind of a thought experiment. I have an invented country called Britistan. Then we're going to look at 3 case studies: the Philippines, Dambas, Sichuan, and Guangzhou. Then we're going to look at English, and then we're going to conclude by looking at threat languages. So let's move to the People's Democratic Republic of Britistan. I'm modeling this a little bit off of Mauritius. So let's just assume that there's a population of 8 million, so that's a little bit larger than Hong Kong. There's 4 main ethnic groups. We have the Wombat. They're poor workers. They're relatively recent arrivals. And then you have the Serene. They're rich, but also somewhat recent arrivals. Then you have the Berduin. They make up 20% of the population. They're mountain herders. They're indigenous. That means they've been on the island for a very long time before the first 2 groups. And then we have the Nubi. They're poorer workers and fishermen, and they're indigenous, and they make up just 5% of the population. Let's say that you found them in the forest before. Let's also assume that they just became independent from France, and most people on the island speak some French, but each group speaks their own language. So this was a class work that we did, and it's just useful to think about though. So if you are asked to form Bredistan language policy, what should be the medium of instruction for Bredistan? How should the Ministry of Education handle languages of smaller groups? How about the colonial French language? Should everyone on the island be required to learn everyone else's language? What about English? Right? They have French, but is that enough in today's world? French are learning English. Should they have to learn English too? I think it's just an interesting window. Let's kind of pop back to these demographics to think about these issues. Um, some people in class suggested that, well, look, the Serene, they're doing well, so maybe everyone on the island should learn this rich group's language. One issue I brought up was that you could segregate, you could make 4 or even 5 different school systems teaching different mediums of instruction. Take the four local languages and then add the French or even English. Now we have 6 different mediums of instruction. But I would recall a U.S. Supreme Court case. So where I come from in the South, we had segregation. We put black students and white students in different schools. And the states tried to argue that this was fine. They were separate but equal. And the Supreme Court ruled, I think correctly, there is no separate but equal. That if we set up these separate school systems teaching these different mediums of instruction, it's pretty clear that the newbie would have the worst school system, right? Just 5% of the population. How are you going to find well-trained newbie teachers, right? How are they going to get access into college? And we see the Serene are the richest group, but they're probably going to get the best schools, right? You could teach just the French, but you're also going to notice that probably the best resourced, are going to speak the best French. There's no easy answer to this. The truth is, though, this is a problem facing a lot of countries.